Okay, so this unequal sharing question is just a little bit different than what you're accustomed to seeing in your normal unequal sharing. It says Don, Peter, and James went shopping. In all, they spent $2,300. If Don spent the largest sum of money and Peter spent $400 less than Don, and James is the one that is spending $200 less than Peter, and I have a different question than the booklet. I have calculate everyone's share, so we can work with everyone's share. But before I go to the question itself, and I work anything, I want to focus a bit on the statements written here. Peter spent $400 less than Don. That is a simple one. So if I just give Don, let's say I'm just putting a number. If I say Don is 1,000, then I will be able to say Peter would be 1,000 minus $400 less. So it's kind of easy to understand. This is not the answer. I'm just showing you something, right? That if you tell me Don has 1,000 and Peter is spending $400 less, then it's obviously going to be 400 from 1,000. So this could be Peter. I'm using random numbers, remember that. What I want to focus on is the next sentence that says, James spent $200 less than Peter. See that question there? That piece of the question is important because if I tell you, I only know about Don. Don is 1,000. If I say I only know about Don, who I am saying I am giving a random number, is 1,000. And you already told me Peter is 400 less. 400 less means that Peter, when I work with my random number, Peter is going to be 600. James is $200 less than Peter. So if I use this random number, James will be 200 from 600. James is 4. And I want you to focus on those numbers because there is something there that is important. So let us make sure we understand before I move forward. I first of all was using a random number, 1,000. And I'm using the numbers here to say that if you tell me Peter spent 400 less than Don, then Peter will be 400 from 1,000, 600. And if you tell me James is 200 less than Peter, then James is going to be 600 minus 200 less, 400. So you make sure you understand this, please, first. And then I want you to keep an eye on James and Don. Because if Peter is $400 less than Don, and James is $200 less than Peter, then James is $600 less than Don. I will repeat that, although I have it written already, because it's an important key. If you tell me that Peter is $400 less than Don, and James is $200 less than Peter, then you are telling me that James is 4 plus 2, $600 less, $600 less than Don. And if you look at my numbers, you will see James is 400, which is $600 less than my imaginary number 1,000. So that's important there to make sure you understand that piece of the question. I'm just going to pause for a moment to make sure that's sinking. So now we can look at the question carefully. Don spend the largest amount. We do not know how much. They didn't say Don spent 1,000. They didn't say Don spent 5,000. They did not put a number. Peter spent 400 less than Don. And if I never figured out what Don have, then I could never figure out Peter. I have to find out Don. James spent 200 less than Peter, and I can't figure out Peter unless I figure out Don. So finding out Don is a key part of the question. That's why my note says that this is like algebra. Algebra is basically, for your understanding, I use a letter when I am not sure of a value. For example, I do not know how much Don is. So I can't say Don is 500. I can't say Don is 600. I do not know how much each person gets. So I'm going to use the letter X to represent any of those that I don't know. So look how I write up the question. What is Don's share? I don't know. So I'm going to put X. What is Peter's share? I don't know. So I'm also putting an X. But I know something. I know that Peter is $400 less than Don. So when I figure out Don, whenever I find out Don, I have to minus 400. James. I do not know how much James is. So I put an X. But when I find out Don, I know that James is 600 less, so I need to subtract 600, right? I'm going to pause here to make sure you understand my table clearly. So if I continue now, I have to take out 600 for James and 400 for Peter. So in all, I have to take out 1,000. I have to take out 1,000. Now, if I just subtract the 1,000 from the 23, I get a whole lot of weird numbers. So I'm just not going to do that. Look at what I did. I have created a number question. I have taken the English up here and I have made it into a question as numbers. How many X's are there in the paper? 1, 2, 3 X's. So the 3 X's minus the 1,000 I have to take out is equal to $2,300 in total. And you have done a lot of questions with that thing where they give you a number and they say they multiply the number by 5 and they subtract 2 and they give you an answer. And they say, what do? You have to do the opposite. So instead of subtracting 2, you add 2. Instead of multiplying by 5, you need to divide by 5. So you should be accustomed to this piece of information here. If the 3 X's, which I have 1, 2, 3 X's, minus 1,000, because I have to take out 6 and 4, I have to take out 1,000, is 23. Then in order to do the opposite here, instead of subtracting, I'm going to add. So I will go and add the 1,000. I will end up with 3,300. When I add the 1,000, I'm going to end up with 3,300. So let me put that $sign there. And then I'm going to say if the 3 X's here, the 3 shares is equal to 3,300, then 1 share will be divided. And that's how I get 1,100. So I need you to make sure and take a look at this piece here and tell me if you understand that piece of information there clearly. So we have to work on this little piece in the center here. That's a bit tricky. But once we figure out it's 11, then Don is getting 11. All the x's, that's what we did. We figured out that each x is 1100. So this x will get 1100. This x will get 1100 minus 400. And this one will be also 1100 minus 600. So 1100 for Don. 1100 is written here. Remember, this x will be 1100. But we have to minus 400 for Don, for less than Don, sorry. So that's what I did. And then this x here will get another 1100. And instead, we are subtracting 4 plus 2, 600. So 11 minus 4, 700 for Peter. 11 minus 6, 500 for James. And Don is 1100. So 11 plus 7 is 18. 18, 23. 18 and 5, 23. Which is what I started with. I will send you this paper. Let me do the other one. I'll send you this paper afterwards. Let me just pause the recording. Clarence, Bob, and Jenna won $1,700 in a dancing competition. Bob got the most amount of money. Jenna got 300 less than Bob. And Clarence got 250 less than Jenna. So what I need you to note on this is a few of, this is what the table is. The table is taking the English and making it maths. So Bob got the most, but we don't know how much Bob got. So I put an X. Jenna got 300 less than Bob, but I don't know how much Bob got. So I have to say that X here minus 300. When I figure out this number, I could say 600 minus 300. I could say 1000 minus 300. But the question never told me. So I'm using the X. So Bob is an X because we don't know how much that is. Jenna is 300 less than whatever Bob is. So we have 300 from the X. I need to just change. I kind of copied over, right? So let me just make that change. Bob here. And then Clarence, again, remember just like the question above. Jenna gets 300 less than Bob. Clarence gets 250 less than Jenna. So really and truly, Clarence is getting 300 plus 250, 550 less than Bob. Bob is our key. Bob is the one we look at. That is an important piece of information to make sure you understand. I'm pausing my recording. So how much am I taking out? I'm going to be taking out the 300 for Jenna, plus I'm going to be taking out 550 for Clarence. So I need to remove 850. Well, we're not removing anything yet, but make sure you understand that I have to take out 850. I have to take out the 300 from here, plus the 550 from here. I have to take out a total of 850. And then I start getting my equation in order. How many X's on the paper? 1, 2, 3 X's. Plus I need to take out 850 will give me my 1700. Again, the 3 numbers I don't know, plus the take out the 850 will give me the 1700 that I have to work out. So what do I do now? I will have to remove, just like I have been doing from before. I usually subtract, opposite will be to add. So the 1750, add the 850, will be the 2550. And then 2550 could be shared now equally among the three x's that I don't know. So when you divide that number, 2550 divided by 3, you should get 850. So anywhere on the paper where you had x, you need to make it 850. So Bob was on x by himself, 850. Jenna is x, which is 850, but you have to subtract 300. Which means Jenna is down to 550. And then clearance is 850. And we said we were taking out 550 less. When we check back, clearance is 850. And we are taking out 550 less. Which means clearance is now 300. So clearance is 300. Jenna is 550. And Bob is 850. And well, you could answer the question because they didn't ask for everything. But that is how this is done. I suggest you really have to look back at this recording at some point.